Dear listener, we finally have a result in ARN versus Kyle Sandilands. Joining me to discuss is Natasha Lee, media editor of Media Week and my co-host on Media Tarts. Hey, Tash.
Hey, Wade. How's it going?
Going well. Natasha, picture this. You agree to rent a house for 10 years for $100 million. It's way above market rates, but you roll the dice because you don't want anyone else to take it. You love the place and you think it'll be your forever home. So you move in, and after a while you discover some walls are defaced with smut and there are some witches in the basement. You go back to the landlord and you tell them you don't think you're getting what you paid for. And the landlord says, look, he doesn't really understand what the fuss is about because you have to keep making the rental payments. That's the agreement. And he's in control. But then you remember a clause that says the landlord has to provide a tenancy that is clean and safe for everyone to use. Based on that, you cut a deal and end up moving out, but you only pay circa $30 million. It's a lot to pay for a property, but hey, as any accountant will tell you, you've just saved $70 million. Plus, you'll take a cut on the previous tenant's next rental. Cue the champagne corks and let's get a refund on those Louis Vuitton briefcases. ARN here have managed to cut the deal of a lifetime to get out of their lease and move to another house. And next time, they won't be the tenant, they'll be the landlord. They'll have a line of sight and control over who the tenants are. And we'll have control on the kind of parties that are held. Maybe some loose dinner parties, but certainly no orgies. People will actually want to come to the party and maybe even put their brand at the party too. So for me, I think for ARN, today is one to celebrate. There's still some things to play out, but I think you'd much rather be staying in ARN's house than anywhere else. What do you think?
Well, I love that analogy. That's wonderful. I think it's really interesting because at the beginning when this all first took place, people were saying, oh my God, what are they doing? Do they know what they're doing? I hope they've got good lawyers, ARN, I mean. And quite clearly they did know what they were doing. They didn't reveal as much about their case, right? Remember, we didn't know as much. So there was quite possibly a lot more under the hood that they weren't sharing. I'm actually sure there's a lot more under the hood that they're not sharing. And perhaps that was also their trump card. And that's allowed them, obviously my opinion or speculation. So it's quite interesting to know that they actually did have a plan this whole time.
Yeah, I think they've got out of it really cheaply and I think they deserve to be happy by it. I think Kyle's team are going to spin this like crazy. It's going to be a victory for Kyle for some reason, and he's going to go off and do his own thing, which is great. He gets to do his own thing, so there's no problem with that at all. But I can't read this any other way than ARN have got the deal of a lifetime. You spoke to a legal expert today for Media Week. What did you learn?
I did. I spoke to Michael Byrnes, and he's a partner at SWAB and a specialist workplace relations lawyer. And he's wonderful, and he's a talent that many people get a hold of because he just explains legal terms so succinctly and just for the everyman, right?
Yep.
One of the most interesting things that he said is that this is part legal settlement and it's part commercial deal. So stay with me. So
right.
Even though ARN are putting the legal case behind them, he said, they're actually entering into a commercial deal, a commercial agreement to work together, albeit in a less intense capacity, with Kyle Sandilands.
Yeah, because he's not going to directly provide services. They were pretty clear on that. In their statement, they basically said in any capacity he's not doing that. But is it because of the independent media opportunities that Kyle's got and the agreement with ARN to help with that?
Well, he's going to be getting access to ARN platforms and the infrastructure. And then in return, he's going to be sharing some of that revenue with them for up to 3 years.
Right. So the way to think about this is the Kyle and Jackie O show is dead. We knew that. Kyle is now no longer, and I noticed Quasi Media or whatever his company's called is not mentioned anywhere in the statement. It's only about Kyle. So that's all gone. So now what's happened is they've gone, all right, Kyle, you want to do your own thing. Here are some things that sit with that. We're going to give you $1.5 million over the next 3 years in contra advertising for what you're up to. You're going to sell revenue yourself, but we'll take about a 20% cut of that for up to 3 years. And also what ARN get out of it is a restraint. He can't go to a direct competitor for 9 months. Now, this is interesting, direct competitors. It doesn't say who, because your mind naturally goes to SCA Nova. But if you're an entertainment company, as Michael Stephenson tells us, there's a lot of direct competitors then, isn't there?
Well, are there? I was talking to a source inside ARN today, and one of the things that they mentioned to me is that where is Kyle going to go? I mean, in terms of being commercially viable and in terms of going somewhere else, that element of whether or not he's commercially viable was the catalyst for ARN terminating, along with the mad fucking witches, right? Their influence affected revenue so significantly. If he's going to be back on radio, it won't be commercial radio. Southern Cross with Stereo and Nova, they're not going to touch him.
Yeah, but if you're an entertainment company, I would say Sky News is a competitor, isn't it? If he gets a Sky News show, would you be happy with him doing that on breakfast time, for instance?
Interesting. I don't know. Maybe a good lawyer could come in and say it's a completely different format. It's TV. There's no music. It's opinion based. I don't think it is a direct competitor, only because it is a completely different format, and we're really hearing him focus on his point of view rather than the show. And then I guess there is 2GB, which is now with Tapped Media. That would also be a direct competitor, I suppose, as well. So, I mean, you're right. Getting into the nitty-gritty of it, we can pick apart both and say, yes or no for both. The other clever thing, though, is that he's going to get 1.5 million, additional on top of that 12 million in advertising support and advertising services.
Yep.
So,
that's the
right.
country,
That's pretty clever, and that's pretty well thought out, because that sort of stuff is what he needs to set himself up in this new venture.
Yeah, so play that out to the end. So let's say in 2027, there's a new breakfast show on KISS. Well, there will be a new breakfast show on KISS Sydney and probably a different show on KISS Melbourne. And you're hearing ads for Kyle Sandilands live. Go to kyle.com and you can watch it live. I mean, that's going to be really interesting to hear how they play that out, because effectively they're going to be advertising to a competitor in the minds of the audience, but it's a competitor that they've got a vested interest in revenue out of. So yeah, it's a really interesting deal, isn't it? It's not just here's the money, go away. It's here's the money, and we've found a way to kind of continue working together as partners, which is really fascinating. That's why I think anything other than seeing this as a win for ARN is just spin, because it absolutely gets them where they want to be. Post Kyle, they've still got Jackie to work through, so that's still on foot. They've got an opportunity to help Kyle and make some money off Kyle, and they have got a line of sight on their cash flow for the next sort of 5 or so years on who they're going to pay to do this big Sydney-Melbourne breakfast show that's going to replace them. So look, of all the problems that ARN have had over the last few years and all the bad days they've had, this is undoubtedly the best day. I think they've got to a point with Kyle that it's gone away.
I saw Michael Stephenson at Carl and Eddie's live launch for the long weekend, and we were
last week.
Yeah, and we were talking about the case, and we were talking about the headlines and why the media, why we're still so obsessed with the figures for KISS when WSFM did so well in the last survey. And I was pretty blunt, and I said to him, because it's going to still be, and Michael Byrnes uses this expression and I love it, it's hanging over you guys like the sword of Damocles. It is always going to be there until the court case is settled, and then it's going to gradually, fade away from people's minds. News is quick and fast, and stories die very, very quickly, but this won't until the court case is settled, until something is settled. And I think now perhaps it's, maybe a bit of breathing space now, and then they can start to rebuild in the way that they've got plans to do so, whatever that may be.
Yeah, whatever that may be. Well, they can rule a line under Kyle, that's settled, and now they've got to work on Jackie's, whatever's going to go on there, whether it goes to court or settle, who knows? But I think it's in everyone's interest that it kind of keeps moving. So we'll read about it more in Media Week, and we're going to talk about it on our Media Tuts podcast out on Friday. And just in a complete, I don't know what you'd call this. It's not kind of a coincidence. It's just one of those weird timing things. We're going to be talking about sex and just sex sell. We've got Jana Hocking as a guest talking about sex.
Oh, the wonderful Jana Hocking. Yes, well, it does. It quite clearly does. There have been a few stories this week that have been focused on, sex and explicit and so forth, and it fits in very nicely given all the problems with the Kyle and Jackie O show and the smut. I love that word, smut.
Yeah. Well, maybe sex sells, but smut doesn't. Maybe that's what we've learned. But we'll find out more on Media Tarts, which will be in your feeds on Friday at lunchtime. And also here on the Quarter Hour, because we love everything about radio, we're going to play the audio from the 3 SCA shows that finished up yesterday and today, the regional breakfast shows. We've got their last audio that they did when they're thanking their listeners and stuff. So if you're a lover of those teams, a lover of radio, in your feed later tonight, Liam will be taking you through that audio as a way of celebrating those shows and the contribution they made to radio. But Tash, I'll see you Friday.
See you Friday.